Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair aghle, ni hao, chuneshumme, washmale. Ohai gunzaimas, guten Morgen, hola, boyo, privyet, kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore, ahlan wasar, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabia, balli kare aya. Hoş geldin anayo sayo, khuyamura, chivato, chihaljot, kalimera, khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan. With me, I'm really lucky that I've been joined by my very well-learned colleague, who happens to be Miss Hajra. Satti. Hello Hajra, assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much, Jazakallah khair, for introducing me. And now moving on to very interesting aspects of our stories that our team compiles, and I do a lot of research in making sure that some interesting bits of the section comes to you, and that is related to Pakistan's cricket team, and that holds practice session for the second test. The second match of the match test series between Pakistan and West Indies will be played at the Multan Cricket Stadium from January 25th. Pakistan cricket team participated in the practice session in Multan after 2 days of the rest. After all the 15 players of the squad did the batting, bowling and fielding under the supervision of the coaches, Pakistan leads the 2 test match series as they won their first match by 127, and good luck to Team Pakistan, because there's I guess a Champions Trophy, I believe, is approaching, and may the best team win. And we've seen, and already we know that cricket is a sport that runs really high on the emotions. I would say that a lot of people, Pakistanis' emotions are invested, and I'm still surprised as to why this is not a national game, considering its popularity and considering that how much we own that sports, because it is played in every street, in every corner.
Exactly, and not just that. I think in addition to this, when hockey was actually kind of designated as our national sport as well, Pakistan was doing very wonderfully well in hockey too as well. But I think Hajra is very right on this. But while we are at it, and while we're talking about West Indies and Pakistan and 2 test matches and them to come together, I think there's always been a debate about, how we are making sure that now we need to make spin tracks. Now imagine that Pakistan might have won with 127 runs, but imagine that the total number of balls being bowled and the scores being in aggregate as well. I think the last time the lowest score was somewhere around in 1980s, and that too was against West Indies. So I think it's very interesting, the debacle and the argument is actually on about it. But while we are at it, let's talk about how the weather is going to look like, probably in days to come and for today. So for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a very basic line that we say every single day, that it's going to be cold and dry weather, which is obviously expected. But according to the Met Office, I think there needs to be a change of vocabulary too as well.
Yeah, then you should work hard for that, right?
Yeah, and I think that for all of those people who are writing these stories, probably we can come up with that. But according to Met Office, light rain, snowfall over hills is expected at isolated places in Kashmir and Baltistan during the forecast period. Met Office informed that continental air is prevailing over most parts of the country. A westerly wave is affecting western and upper parts of the country. So, ladies and gentlemen, just make sure, it's more of an advisory for everybody who's out there. If you're traveling, keep yourself warm. Just take all the precaution measures which you're supposed to, while you're traveling. Maybe, foggy patches on the motorway or the hilly areas.
Speaking of rain, and there's a very interesting, I would say, reincarnation of the rain, and that too in the form of the coffee. For the coffee lovers in the Singapore, a coffee shop in the Singapore has introduced a unique idea of serving a coffee, which has garnered a lot of interest from the customers, and that video is also making many viral rounds on the internet. The concept, titled Sweet Little Rain, involves cotton candy suspended over the hot coffee, which then melts as a result of the steam that rises, causing the cloud to gently rain into the cup. The melting sugar creates a visually stunning experience, and we've seen that how nice is that. But I don't know if I would like to have that cup of the coffee, because I'm not a big fan of the cotton candy, but I guess the sweetness in the coffee comes from that. And now moving on to another very interesting aspect of the segment, and we at the PTV World have always championed younger voices coming to our platform, being projected on the platform, because Pakistan's young population consists of around 60%, and how to cater to such a vast audience out there, such a vast demographic, I would say, a particular population about it, and how to make sure that their voices do not only reflect in the governance, but they're also reflected in the policy matters, in the educational matter, in the academic matter, because these are the voices. I would believe that they are more evolved because they are more in tune with what is happening around them. So in order to make sure that younger voices have more say, there is the Prime Minister's National Youth Council, and it is diligently working in order to unfold the conversation what exactly Prime Minister's National Youth Council is about and how it is helping project the younger voices. Now, we're very glad that we have been joined by Malik Haider Ali. He happens to be the member of Prime Minister's National Youth Council, and he's also a student of IST, Institute of Space and Technology. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Wonderful to have you over here. In addition to this, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by another member as well. Happens to be Miss SHROUQ. TARIQ, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. But not just that, I think in addition to this, we really need to kind of say it out loud as well, that the first National Youth Council has actually fulfilled their term. These are the newly elected or selected members. We'll speak about it, but in addition to this, Hajra, very quickly, you know, the Asia Commonwealth Youth Alliance is taking place for the very first time, and the secretariat is going to be in Pakistan. So I think it's a great deal. Congratulations, all the hard work being put in. Let's get started with the conversation. How do you feel about it, first of all?
Well, it's great because I have already been part of the Prime Minister Youth Program, and I have seen that all the team at the Prime Minister Youth Program, including the chairman, Rana Mashood, has been working very hard for this Commonwealth Asia Youth Alliance. And
Chairman, Prime Minister Youth Program, yes.
Exactly, Rana Mashood Saab. So now, finally, the days are coming, and we're going to launch the KHOKHAR initiative here in Islamabad. The delegates are going to come by Sunday or hopefully by Monday.
Yep.
And their secretariat is also be going to launch this coming week in Pakistan.
And that's wonderful. Since SHROUQ, now let's come forward to you and let's develop this conversation further. How do you believe it is contributing towards generating a stronger younger presence within the policy making circles, within the academic circles, within the governance structures? And how do you believe such sort of platforms provide a more broader inclusive participation for younger people, and who is eligible to participate?
I think, like we always hear, that youth is a very important factor in any country's development or growth. So I think that...
do you believe in that?
I do believe in that,
wonderful.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like engaging youth in understanding the problems that a country is facing, and then talking about those problems, talking is very important, and then working towards better policy making and how we can solve those problems. I think it's very important. And I think that's a very great initiative by the government.
Yes, yes. And Haider, so now let's move forward to you, since you belong to IST, which is Institute of Space and Technology, right? And before the red light of the camera went on, we were talking about the technological corridors, right? How much, and now we see it's a digital century. It is driven by the artificial intelligence, social media. It's a very essential social fabric of our lives. And, you know, what sort of developments are taking place when we talk about the technological corridors, that too in the governance circles, and how do you believe that your participation as a younger leader will help understand maybe the bureaucracy, which is not very young, to incorporate some younger voices, because very, very difficult task. I mean, gearing them towards this particular younger concept note.
And it's certainly important because you happen to be the UN Junior Ambassador for SDG goals. You went to Massachusetts, you're at climate change, you're doing the advocacy yourself. So please go ahead, tell us all about it.
Additionally, I was, before going to US, I was appointed as Ambassador for International Liaison on the Prime Minister Youth Program. And on that behalf, I negotiated with the 4 bureaus of State Department in DC, along with the EPA headquarters, their youth council. So while coming back to your question, universities play a critical role. Here I would like to mention the role of my department, my university. So my department, Mechanical Engineering Department, under the supervision of HOD Dr. Asif Asrar. After coming back to US, we are right now working for creating a climate research program in Pakistan, which is going to be funded by Gates Foundation in collaboration with the Bureau of OES, US State Department, and which is going to enable the Pakistani student to do tier 1 research, top tech research on climate technologies like CCS, climate modeling, etc., etc. And then we are going to project those research in the international arena. For example,
Right.
when we have World Economic Forum and stuff like that.
Right,
So
right.
it's, you know, it's a complete corridor in which we are working, and especially our Vice Chancellor, Brigadier Zia, and Head of
Right.
Department, Dr. Asif Israr, are taking keen interest in it, and inshallah ta'ala it will be soon. You guys will see it.
Inshallah,
hope,
inshallah.
inshallah, we hope that this happens. So now, SHROUQ, coming back to you, since you are a journalist by profession, right? So, and I'm also a journalist. I've studied journalism as a subject in my university, and I do see that nowadays there's a lot of distrust of the journalism by the younger people. They're not tuning into the broadcast houses and the journalism houses, and there's generally a disconnect between the younger people and the consumption of the news, right? With such sort of, I would say, the dilemma which is happening, taking place within the journalism houses, how do you think that we can rope in the younger voices, or you as a journalist can play a vital role? Because there was a time when media would be called the fourth pillar of the society, right? But I don't believe that's the case anymore, because a lot of people are tuning away from this profession. So how do you bridge that disconnect?
I feel like media is still very important.
Okay.
I do agree that the youth, they're engaging more on social media. But the problem with social media is there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation.
Yes, yes.
And I think we still need to rely on legit media houses to actually know the actual news that is fact-based.
Right.
So, and another thing, that if you really want to engage the youth, I think we should focus more on human interest stories, which I think, and things that actually matter to the people.
And I do believe, in addition to this, I think what we really need to do is that our youngsters really need to do the fact finding themselves. So if we are speaking or saying that, that we are journalists, I think it's our responsibility to fact find and then make sure that we share it with other people. But what is the common sentiment when you come across, youngsters, probably your class fellows, your friends, and there's this story that they're sharing with you, but you know the facts yourself. Is it hard convincing them, hey, you know what, it's not the way that you think?
Absolutely.
Thank you
oh
so
my
much.
God, the arguments start this way. Oh no, you don't know. We know. And I think, again, it comes from disinformation and misinformation. People would just believe anything that's put on social media, and they wouldn't believe actual journalists who are on ground reporting about stuff.
Which is why I would want to connect it. Now imagine that that your oath taking ceremony will be on Monday or Tuesday. Inshallah, the Commonwealth Youth Alliance as well is going to be taking place for the very first time in Pakistan. Imagine there will be ministers. The Honorable Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Mia Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif Saab, is going to be there. Now imagine that this is a challenge that you come across when you are seeing your own peers or your friends, right? Imagine now you have a greater responsibility where they rely on you, that you really need to serve the purpose of being a think tank or somebody who's doing their research, fact finding. How do you bridge that gap? I'm going to come back to you. When you go to a minister of a relevant ministry, you're like, sir, I think that we really need to do this. How welcoming are they? And do you think that that actually serves the purpose of you being in the National Youth Council?
Well, that's exactly the critical role of National Youth Council, because as member of NYC, we have to advise the highest office, Prime Minister office, that
How
which
does it feel though? Sir,
it's a responsibility. It's a big responsibility, because we play a critical role in the regional dynamics, because youth is the 60% of the population, and if they gets demotivated, then it's gonna be fatal for not only our state but also. So we have to advise every department that what initiatives they should take to empower the youth, and once the youth is listened up, their voices are heard, they are going to be satisfied.
And I think that's a very interesting point to further develop this conversation. And SHROUQ, I would like to come to you. So Pakistan's younger population is 60%, right? And we all know this very well-versed conversation that younger population is a demographic gift. But if they are not, their productivity is not utilized in a very productive manner, that can become also a demographic bomb if they're not guided properly. And since you guys represent more, I would like to say, the urban areas, the urban centers, how are you making sure that a lot of population who are residing in the rural areas, they are also being represented in such sort of platforms, right? Because I do feel that the awareness level might not be as much high as it is in the urban areas in the first center. So do you feel that there is a proportionate representation of them? And if not, how do you think that you can bridge this gap?
So as a journalist, I've been to those areas and I've spoken to those people myself, especially during the floods. And since I focus more on climate change, I love to focus more on climate change. So I think I would be able to, though it's a very huge responsibility, but I think since I've spoken to those people and I know what their problems are, I think and I hope that I'm able to be that bridge to that gap that you just talked about, and be a voice for them, because as you said, there are people who are voiceless and they cannot actually speak about their problems.
But I think when we further develop this conversation, when we talk about giving them a voice, so Haider, I would like you to answer it, since you're related with the technology and IST has a role to play in that. So for example, we do see that in Pakistan, Pakistan has a very vibrant freelancing culture, but we do see that on and off there are internet disruptions, right? And there are a lot of villages within Pakistan, their earning is actually related to the TikTok or all of these platforms, right? How can you convince the governments that they create more flourishing breeding grounds so those people can be, catered to, right? And in the second place, I would like to say, for example, our neighboring country, it has a very vibrant Silicon Valley, right? Pakistan does not have it, right? And if we take this IT sector as a breeding ground, and it can be a massive, because we do see content creator, they're earning a hell lot of money, and that can bridge in and rope in a lot of money to Pakistan. So how can you convince the people who are at the top to support this environment?
To serve the purpose.
Well, the core objective of National Youth Council was to make sure that people, not only all across Pakistan, from the minorities, from, but also for the first time, overseas Pakistanis are also included in this initiative.
Yeah.
So by their addition, I think so everyone will be given equal share of representing their concerns and drafting out a policy, since people from all different backgrounds are going to be part of this initiative.
And that's exactly what I wanted to ask. Now imagine that 15,000 applications came in, all these 15,000 people wanted to be a member of the National Youth Council.
Exactly.
The overseas participation, I believe, is obviously needs to be welcomed and probably applauded as well. But while we are at it, because of the question that we were speaking about, that what about people who actually live in rural areas? You have visited those areas, SHROUQ, yourself. Do you think that, that once, inshallah, you will be at the oath-taking ceremony, there will be equal representation of all the regions of the country? Do you think that that's how the National Youth Council is being constituted?
Indeed,
whoever
there
wants to
is.
answer.
There's so much, like the Prime Minister office took, they take all the people coming from different villages, their transport and everything is funded by the PM office, and even the overseas Pakistanis, they're like supported by the Prime Minister office.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, and thank you so much for saying that as well, because that's the kind of participation that we really need from all the youngsters. May them be wherever. So may them be in Italy, may them be in UK, may them be in Canada.
And I think we also need to rope in the potential of the overseas Pakistanis, because they play a very vital role in those countries, and we can utilize not just in the monetary terms but also in the non-monetary terms. We can utilize their potential and make them an ambassador for our representation there.
Exactly.
So what are your concluding remarks, both of you? Very quickly, SHROUQ and then Haider.
I think that it's a very huge responsibility, but I'm honored to be a part of the Youth Council.
Wonderful.
And I'll try my best to be a voice for the voiceless and be a bridge for the gap that is there.
That's exactly what we want. Haider, before you share your concluding remarks, there's one more aspect that I would want you to answer on that. That is that now, for all of a sudden, a youngster who's already a member of the National Youth Council, do you take advantage of that at times?
Well, there is no advantage.
Because I think we really need to kill this very misadventure what people do when they have an opportunity.
There is no advantage, because every government vacancy have its own requirements and SOPs, and you have to comply with that.
Okay.
And nobody is going to facilitate you.
All right,
Right,
that's
and
wonderful.
thank you so much for saying that and for these concluding remarks. And at PTV World, we also make sure that we bring in young voices as much as we can and give voices to all of those voiceless people who might not be given that sort of a platform. So we will conclude this segment, and thanks both of the guests once again for being
Wonderful.
here.
Best of luck
and,
for your
best of
oath-taking.
luck for your oath taking, and best of luck. It's a huge responsibility. I hope that you're able to shoulder it. And now moving on to whether a very interesting news, and in which a mother is a mother, whether it's from the human society or from it's from the animal society. So mother dog brings sick, freezing puppy to the vet's office, carrying her to the front door to a veterinarian clinic in Turkey. The video shows the dog arriving at the vet's clinic. Doorsteps with her pup, the staff at the clinic took the puppy, which had a faint heartbeat, and began treating it, and all this while mother stayed by her sick puppy. The staff administered an adrenaline shot and then warmed the puppy using a hair dryer. Later, the pup was reunited with her mother and the sibling, which had earlier been brought to the clinic by the locals concerned about his health.
Wow.
And this video shows that, you know, how the dogs and the cats are treated in the Turkey. And I've been to Istanbul a couple of times and I've seen that. I think it's most feline friendly country because they love the cats there, they love their stray dogs there, and they are putting so much food out there. And this shows that how empathy and the kindness, which are very integral part, I would say, the fitra of the animals, it also brings the best in us human beings.
Exactly, and that's exactly what is required as well. You know, so may it be the UK, may it be Istanbul, in Turkey, or anywhere else as well. Imagine that I was in States last time. We couldn't really, you know, let the dog go outside because there was neighborhood watch going on, and they do not really let or allow your dog to be outside for a longer period of time. But while we're at it, and while a mother will be a mother, a whale will be a whale as well, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is the bit where it gets interesting, where a beluga whale delighted spectators at Harbin Polar Park in the northeast China with a synchronized dance routine alongside its keeper. The whale moved in harmony to Bruno Mars and Blackpink's hit song, Petit, Petit. Yeah, so that's the song. Swaying and nodding, the beluga's playful performance captivated the audience. Known for their curious and social nature, belugas are a favorite among marine enthusiasts, and this entertaining display has further highlighted their charm and intelligence. Wow.
Right, and now we will move forward to another very interesting segment, and that deals with how I've talked about social media as an integral social fabric of our lives, and we cannot dismiss that. And one of the sub-aspect or sub-community of the social media, I would like to say, is the gaming sector. And it is such a huge billion-dollar industry. So many people are investing in it. But with the gaming industry, there are lots of, I would say, challenges and opportunities that comes with it. We do see that people are hooked to the gaming, and there are a lot of concern. But how can we make gaming a positive experience? Because while social media and these screens will remain an integral part of our life, we need to make sure that how we learn to live with that. True. And how to make sure that there are lots of what is the impact of gaming on our mental health, and recently how gamers can ask themselves to ensure that gaming brings a positive experience rather than a negative one. And we will also talk about the toxicity and the harassment in the online gaming communities. How can we make sure that it remains a positive experience? To further delve into it, I'm very glad that we have been joined by a Canadian Pakistani who happens to be living in the UAE, and he's also been bestowed upon this very honorary title. He's made the ambassador of the gaming by the UAE government, by the actually police department there. And he happens to be TAHA KHOKHAR. Assalamu alaikum, TAHA, and thank you so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you guys for having me.
Parkman, it's wonderful to have you on the show. I mean, obviously, I think that the conversation which you're about to unfold will be really interesting. Hajra, please go ahead. You were about to ask something.
And I think, सबसे पहले I would like to ask you, what are some of the latest and viral gaming challenges which everyone is trying since you are into this field? Why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
I think the biggest thing that everyone is trying to get into right now is like gaming is such a vast industry right now, especially with esports taking over so much of the world now. It's not just about the content side of things. It's not just playing games, but now you have gaming tournaments that are worth millions and millions of dollars. Saudi Arabia, for example, is a very big part of this with their esports World Cup, soon esports Olympics. Esports World Cup, for example, had a $50 million prize pool last year. And this year, they're planning to go even higher with even bigger prize pools. So, you know, that is a challenge that people are attacking from all sides, where everyone is trying to get good or extremely good at certain games, from Fortnite to Call of Duty to Counter-Strike to League of Legends, and trying to get into those games because each game alone has like a $5 million prize pool for people.
Right, and Taha, how much social media is pivotal to influencing the gaming culture? Because honestly speaking, I'm not very much into the gaming, so I would want you to take the lead and educate a lay person like me.
So I think social media plays a huge role, not just in esports, but also gaming as a whole. Because without influencers, without people making videos on social medias, most games would not be as big as they are now, right? The marketing, traditional marketing is, I would say, somewhat dead in a way nowadays. When it comes to marketing your games, you need influencers, you need people who have virality in order for your videos to actually get pushed, in order for your video game to be marketed properly. And I think that's where social media plays a huge role, where a game can, do good or do bad just based on if content creators are playing it or not. And this is where I guess I you can say Call of Duty is taking a hit right now, with a lot of influencers uh having negative things to say about the game right now, with the cheating scene in there, and that's why Call of Duty's player base is down.
But Parkman, I think let's unfold it, and let's dive a little more deeper. Now imagine that I actually happen to be the only person who's actually been hosting these esports gaming competitions over here in the country. May it be PUBG, may it be Fortnite. The winning prize is in millions of rupees as well. But now imagine that it goes beyond that. First of all, it's a challenge for parents to kind of understand that it can certainly run a household. For example, Arsalan Ash happens to be one of the only Red Bull sponsored e-gaming athlete over here in the country, number one. Number two, now if we are to speak about that, imagine that there are alliances, and then, for example, like we have Pakistan Cricket Board, looks after all the players. There are people over here who are actually building this community. They make sure that they're going to get the best talent, bring them together, in fact, pay for their travel, lodging, and there's a fee that they're going to get monthly as well, and then there's a cut which the company will get eventually, because they have been sponsoring them for so long. So how do you think that the parents need to understand that gaming these days can actually be a very fruitful probably business or a household run for any individual who's actually into it, number one. Number two, how do you think that these companies which are forming up now really need to be on the international level? Or do you think that we are at the international level? Are we at par with them?
I think Pakistan is, as a whole, is getting to that point now. I think slow and steady, it's coming to a point where it is on that international stage. You have Red Bull doing a lot of big events as well, where you see them putting on competitions. I know PUBG has been doing incredible things from PUBG Mobile. I've seen tournaments that, are watched from all over the world that were hosted in Pakistan. And all these massive prize pools, they do help. I think it is not at peak just yet, but I think it's getting there. I think peak will come from involving a lot more international talent, which is, I think, somewhere they're slacking just a little bit on that end. Um, as far as like the parental side goes, our parents grew up in a different era. They grew up in a time where making money online was mostly scams. You know, that wasn't the normal thing. And with how times have changed, we just need to not look at it in a bad way. Instead, we need to be able to explain to our parents how we plan on doing that. How things have changed,
Your
how.
parents look at it? Taha, how did your parents look at it when you started gaming? Because imagine that you've garnered 1.5 million followers. Parkman is a household name. You were an ambassador for UAE government too. How was it when your parents realized, okay, now Taha's doing something, so we should actually allow him to do something? Number one. And in addition to this, what we have seen is that kids these days, rather than even playing, they see players online playing some video game. So there's a bit of transition into it.
For sure. My parents were a little bit, confused about it at first. They didn't understand it. And, they weren't for it. They weren't fully against it. They just, were kind of confused on how they feel about it. They thought at first, obviously like every other parent, like, oh, you're wasting your life playing games. But I did not take that as hate. I didn't build hate inside me like, oh, they're not letting me do what I want. I just said, you know what, give me some time. I'll make it work and I'll show you so that you can understand it a bit more. And that's what I did. I worked hard. I worked extremely hard for a few months. Like initially in 2020, for about 6 months straight, I was going to college online. I was working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. I was making my own videos and I was streaming every single day.
Four
And in
hours in
those
a day,
6 months,
bro. So 10 hours
I
you
was
were working, 6 hours you were working, 10 hours you were studying, 16 hours gone. How did you
I
manage to
was
do that?
I was running on 3 hours of sleep a night for 6 months straight.
My God.
Right, but Taha, now let's unfold the conversation and hinge back to our topic, which is the maximizing positives in the gaming experience. So there are lots of researches that actually shows that how the gamings and the addiction to these video games can enhance the violence within the violent tendencies within the players, right? But if you've seen that how gaming has evolved a lot. So how can we maximize the positives within that entire, very violent sort of the videos that we see on the gaming culture, and we will unfold the conversation as you answer that, so please go ahead.
I think for beginners, like the studies, I feel like are inaccurate. I think if someone is being violent, that is a violent tendency that was always there, that was going to come out one way or another, and it's not just related to gaming. You know, at some point, people have psychotic breaks or whatever they might be, and that's going to come out no matter what. I don't think gaming is truly the one that factor that pushes that further. I mean, I feel like personally, I've been through enough in life where gaming has always helped me cope with things. You know, it's helped me overcome things that were making me feel bad. You know, bad things in life, bad news in life, and gaming has always been the one thing that has kept me kind of sane during those times.
Right. So it's a good escape, but Taha, we also need to address the toxicity and the harassment in the online gaming communities. So with your vast experience within this particular arena, how do you think we can address these concerns? Because when we talk about maximizing positives, I think it's essential that we address the negatives within that online community.
I mean, toxicity online is a very common thing. It's sadly a big part of gaming, yes. But you cannot feed toxicity with toxicity. That's the number one way to avoid it. If someone is being toxic with you, you have to go positive no matter what, because you never know what the other person is going through. Maybe the other person's just going through a lot in life and they're venting to you out of toxicity. And you never know. With you being positive back towards them, they could change up their behavior too, which I've personally seen countless amount of times. You know, as a streamer, for example, I used to get a lot of hate comments regarding how I look, where I'm from, things of that sort. And I would never go with a toxic response. I would always try to be positive, like, hey, man, it's okay. You know, I'm doing what I do. How are you doing? How's things going? And then they would completely change.
Look at it this way. For example, you know, if we are to watch sports on probably cricket or hockey or any other sport, you know, there's a bit of sledging which goes on, and I think that it's taken in a very true sportsman spirit kind of a thing. But with e-gaming, how would you kind of balance that whether it's harassment because somebody's saying something, there's a lot of sledging which goes on the pitches, even in between the players as well. So do you take it that, okay, we really need to take it on the chin with high sportsman spirit? Do you think it's the same, or do you think that it's literally harassment then?
No, I think overall gaming works the same way as sports. You know, it's a lot of it is it's exactly as you said. You know, it's not something serious. A lot of the time, the toxicity is just part of the game where it's, you know, it's in sportsmanship. It's like, you know, people just being weird to each other. You just take it on the chin and just go with it. I think harassment comes in when people are taking it above and beyond, you know, threatening to find your location, threatening to send SWAT teams and things of that sort to your house.
Right. And Taha, very quickly, because we have to wrap up this segment. What are the latest gaming genres or mechanics that are going viral since you are into it? Please describe it to us.
At the moment, I think the biggest genre going viral is, I would say, extraction shooters and battle royales. I think those have a very big future. Battle royales have been around for the last 4 to 6 years, but I don't think it is truly at its peak just yet. You know, the peak, I'd say, was PUBG initially when it came through. But going forward, I think it's going to be a healthy mix between battle royale and extraction shooters, being like a 2-in-1.
Right. Thank you so much, Taha, for being on our show, for explaining to us the online gaming communities. And we have seen that nowadays the income streams have diversified so much that content creation or the social media, which we used to consume just for the fun or for the entertainment, has now become a live income for a lot of people, for a lot of youngster people. Yes, and that is why we are witnessing a content boom. As it was happening in the West, I think, for the past a decade or for more than a decade, but in Pakistan it has also gained the momentum. But with that comes a lot of responsibilities, lot of the negatives that we also need to address that, and that is the one of the things that I feel is the burnouts that a lot of people are experiencing, especially the content creators. We will save that debate for some other day, but it's a very interesting topic. We will talk about it. We are going on a short break, and after we come back, we have a very interesting discussion lined up, and that deals with the arts and the flourishing of what do you call the sculptor and all of this. So don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Obviously, earlier we were in conversation with Parkman about gaming and whatnot, and obviously imagine that esports Olympics taking place is certainly a positive for any other country who's actually going to host it. Now imagine that now we are going to come down to a subject which is very close to my heart, Hajra's heart, and everybody's heart, because imagine that if we take the HE out of the heart, it leaves art. That's what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody who actually happens to be a visual artist, not just that the kind of technique that she uses is impressionistic. You know, her national ventures and international ventures are equally kind of famous, but not just that. I think to speak about it, we're very lucky that we have been joined by Miss Nusrat ji. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me over.
It's an absolute pleasure. So Nusrat ji, we will start the conversation about what is trending right now, and how did you find your groove in the visual artisanship and the floral painting?
Or probably if you would want to kind of ask or probably share with us, what is art for you?
Art basically is an expression. It can be anything like dancing, poetry, writing, acting, you name it. Art is basically an expression.
Right, right. So when we talk about your paintings, so for example, your painting is here. What goes into your mind when you are drawing that painting? Is it a very therapeutic form of the self-expression?
Well, when I paint, whatever comes to my mind, I'm very passionate about horses.
Okay.
Yeah, and I love to paint them because from my childhood I've been seeing these very majestic horses walking around, and I used to live in UR1 in Lahore, and there we had a race course ground, and I would see such beautiful horses.
Arabian horses in particular as well.
Yeah.
Right. I think horses are very magnificent creatures, and in the painting they are so
enticing. They are full of strength and power, and you know,
there's
force.
something very attractive about it, especially in a painting and about capturing them. Their beauty is very unmatched. So now when we move on to your paintings, what are some of the common themes that we can find in your paintings which you love to delve into and then, you know, paint it with your hand?
Well, as I said earlier, horses are my really first choice.
Right.
And I have been painting, basically I've tried to portray Pakistan, Pakistani culture.
Right, right.
And I've painted, in fact, I've been to a lot of places where I observe and see and then try to capture their activities, their cultural activities, whatever.
And you know, if we are to kind of look at your work as well, obviously we have spoken about how your, you know, the way you do it is impressionistic, you know, it's very much visible as well. But while we're at it, Nusrat ji, imagine that a child who was 7 years old and was given probably a paintbrush in his hand, didn't even study about it, right? But with you, it's very different. You know, the theoretical aspect of it, the research aspect of it, and then the skill aspect of it. So you make sure that you're going to amalgamate them all and then eventually produce an art piece. Do you think, let's have this debate, do you think that the theory and the research is as much important as much the skill? Or do you think that if only you have the skill, you can still be a good artist?
Well, you have to have some kind of talent in you.
Yep.
As a child, if you are painting, you can express freely whatever comes to your mind. There's no copying work or fake work. of that child.
Yep.
It's his internal, personal expression, what he tries to draw. And that is the true art. And if he has a talent, I think the parents should encourage the child to study art, because art is everything.
And that's exactly why I asked you this question, because your art or your skill set eventually or initially came from your mother. And alhamdulillah, all of you four sisters, one way or the other, are into different art forms, right? So for your mother, you know, to kind of, or you seeing your mother, you know, having that art form to herself or that skill set, how much did it inspire you? And once you had that skill and you went on to kind of learn the theory and the research, how was it for you, the entire journey?
Well, my mother was the first student of, one of the first students of Anna Mulka. If you have heard about her, she is the pioneer of...
The pictures that you shared, it was written in there.
Pioneer of art in Pakistan, and she was one of the first students of her, and I saw few of her paintings. In fact, I have one or two with me also at home, and she would talk a lot about her days when she was studying art. So an inspiration, obviously she was my
in those
inspiration.
times.
Yes, and then we are sisters, we all took fine arts, and I went into painting. My other sisters, they are good in their own way.
That's wonderful.
They are also very arty people.
That's very wonderful. And Nusrat ji, now we would further like to explore. And it is said that art is the imitation of nature, right? Whatever is in the nature, you are copying that, and that is what a real art is. So within the younger people who are also into this field of being artists, would you like to name, you know, which are some of the younger people who inspire you? And if you talk about Pakistan's very rich art history or art scene, what are some of the very strong influences that you also find among your work, which you are inspired to, which you look after, and which aspect of that inspires you?
You're talking of floral.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. Again, my mother comes in. I had always seen lovely flower arrangements in my house, right from childhood, and every room had a flower, floral piece somewhere or the other, in the corner or in the centerpiece. So I picked up from her. Then we had a very nice garden. We had lovely flowers all over. And then when I got married and shifted to Karachi, there I learnt floral art.
Okay, that's interesting. But Nusrat,
actually I learnt. And then from that on, now what you see all over Pakistan, you have seen how the floral culture has developed. And it's all because of us.
And there are now competitions as well where people are actually bringing in their flowers. Do you like our flower arrangement for that sake?
Well, it's a
I think let's not delve into it. That's not a very interesting conversation. But Nusrat ji, when we talk about, I do see that because of these mass production, there are a lot of things that are readily available in the market. But there was a time when I talked to my mother, my grandmother, and she used to say that we used to collect little things, and little things used to give us so much joy. But now when we go to the market and we are even buying something really expensive, it does not give us that much joy, because they are readily available, and I mean the human touch is not involved in that, right? It's made by the machine. How do you find that transition, from when your human touch was present in the arts and now it's mass produced? What do you have to say about it?
Let me tell you something that I think it was 1970s when this whole culture started. There were 5 ladies who started a small, it was a gathering, and they decided to have a sort of floral society, and they started organizing shows, and I was one of them, early pioneer floral designer, and that's how it started, flourishing. And every year we have annual show, and that show is like a, after all, when it finishes, we collect a charity, and we spend that money for the charity. We give them any, you name any big charity
deserving
organization. Yes.
Yes,
We do help them out. Basically, our aim is to help others and to create beauty in this
little
world.
things,
And for that, we have also joined WAFA, which is World Floral Society of Pakistan, and NAFAS, which is National Association of Flower Rangers of England. We visit these shows all over the world. In fact, in 2008, we were supposed to hold floral show, big show.
And you have received numerous awards, maybe New Zealand, maybe Dubai, maybe elsewhere as well. But since we're short on time, Mr. G, thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you over here. For everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, I've seen my mother do it. I've seen my Nana Boo do it. You know, and they've played a major role in how now I am into kitchen gardening as well. So I think the parents really do play a very pivotal role.
Right, and thank you so much once again for our worthy guest being here. And I think her nobility, and I wish and pray that her nobility continues to grow, because giving charity is something that is always encouraged in lots of different traditions. And the religion, with that, we are bidding farewell. Until next time, it's a goodbye. Allah Hafiz.
So good morning.